Everybody, Tim Anderson here, aka Renfell, and welcome to today's episode of Game Studios Gone Wild, where game studios make crazy statements that might have a kernel of truth to them, but are just worded completely wrong, telling their players that they're crazy and that they don't know what's going on. In this case, we're talking about Star Citizen making this announcement that it's reworking its roadmap to avoid distractions caused by unhappy players. So Cloud Imperium Games is going to be putting a stop to any sort of dates on upcoming features to avoid people getting pissed off at them for those goalposts always shifting. We're going to talk about that today. But before we do, if this is your first time to the channel, do me a solid. If you like this video, make sure to smash that like button and of course, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you get updates for future content like this delivered straight to your little inbox every time that we have a new video that goes live or a stream or anything like that. Don't forget, you can also join our Discord. Links are down below. Let's dive in. So this, I haven't read the subreddit yet. Apparently this is blowing up in the Star Citizen subreddit. I actually came across this over at PC Gamer. That was my first inkling of what was going on. And what's interesting about this is that if you actually read the entirety of what they said, it makes sense. It totally makes sense from a developer point of view. However, the way they said it was just incredibly insensitive and quite possibly, I mean, it just could have been said differently. We talked about this yesterday on the Looking for More show. Shameless plug every Thursday, 5 p.m. Central, over on Simmerg's Twitch channel. It's twitch.tv/Simmerg. You can join myself, Simmerg, the host, and Nathan Napalm as we talk about all things nerdy in games. And this came up in the conversation the other day. And we talked about how, they could have worded this a lot differently. The crux of what Cloud Imperium Games is trying to say is that because of the shifting nature of goalposts related to these stretch goals and these features, right? Often these features are tentatively scheduled for this time. We think we can get it done by this date. We estimate that we can get it done by here, etc. But the issue is that many players use those tentative deadlines and they willingly take the tentative out and they assume that that is a publication date for that feature. So the headline here being Cloud Imperium is going to stop putting tentative dates on upcoming new features because too many followers see them as definite commitments. But the issue here is that the way they said it, they're making changes to public development roadmaps to reduce the distractions caused by players and followers who consider long-term goals as solid promises and then kick up a fuss every time the plan changes. So I get this. But there's also a give and take on both sides here. When you're doing a crowdfunded game, you have to be way more open than you could be with a traditional development where you don't have to tell anybody anything. And as a result, you're constantly giving people updates. This is what we're working on. This is what we're doing. Everything should be labeled and has been labeled as tentative, estimated, etc. But the problem is you have a lot of people who again take those dates and use them as solid time commitments. But the crux of this is also the fact that we're now 10 years in to Star Citizen, and we've seen these goalposts shift dozens, if not 100 times or more, and you have a lot of people who are rightfully starting to get upset with the fact that these goalposts are completely shifting. So apparently what they're going to be doing is moving away from putting things in sort of the long-term future tentatively planned category. They said they have decided that this approach of showing people long-term goalposts was a mistake because it puts too much attention on features that have had a high probability of shifting around. It has become abundantly clear to us that despite our best efforts to communicate the fluidity of development and how features marked as tentative should not be relied upon, should sincerely not be relied upon, the general focus of many of our most passionate players has continued to lead them to interpret anything on the release view as a promise. We want to acknowledge that not all of you saw it that way. Many took our new focus and our words to heart and understood exactly what we tried to convey, but there still remains a very loud contingent of roadmap watchers who see projections as promises, and their continued noise every time we shift deliverables has become a distraction both internally at CIG and within our community, as well as to prospective Star Citizen fans watching from the sidelines as our open development communications at our open development communications. So to avoid that noise, they're no longer going to show any work in progress beyond what's coming in the next quarter. Now, this is something they probably should have done a long time ago, but this whole press release could have been worded entirely different. Like, you didn't need to come out and say, it's all your fault. You guys are being too cranky. So, because of you, we're having to change this. You could have come out and said, hey, you know what, guys? We think we're going to be moving to a new system. It's a little bit more streamlined. It's going to allow us to focus more on quarterly goals as opposed to these long-term goals with the where the projections might shift because of 150 different other working parts. Because that's all true. All of these things, if you've never worked on a big project with hundreds of people working on something, things change. People get sick. COVID comes in. We have deliverables that shift around. We have a technology that becomes obsolete. We decide that we can't do shaders a certain way, so we have to make this new thing over here. We decide that the textures aren't working, so we need to shift that. And every time there's a small change like that, it doesn't just affect the 5 or 10 people working on that part of the project. It affects all the other teams around it, and that has a ripple effect that can go out throughout the entire project. So I get where they're coming from with their statement about how goalposts shift. I now also understand, having been in development myself, that you have a certain percentage of people who are always going to latch on to any sort of anything you say. Anything you say can and will be used against you. Absolutely. So if you say anything about anything, we're working on this or whatever, people are going to take that as a promise, as a commitment, as a absolutely going to happen on this date promise. Whether you put a tentative or estimated in front of that date doesn't matter to a certain subsection of the community who just kind of ignore those dates and consider everything to be a promise. So I totally get where they're coming from. However, you don't need to come out and just say it in the way they said it. Um, so this is where it gets interesting. The article even acknowledges it says it seems reasonable on the surface because managing expectations is just a smart thing to do. But Star Citizen is an unusual case to put it mildly because it has been in development for more than a decade. And the writer says, I don't think it's unfair that passionate fans might want more clarity on why things aren't happening, especially given the astounding patience some of them have shown for this project. And referring to them as distractions and their complaints as noise, acknowledging that online discourse can turn ferociously toxic very quickly, doesn't seem like the smartest way to handle that unhappiness. And then they mention the subreddit. So it's a very interesting situation to be in. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. People are obviously very keyed up about this game one way or the other. Again, I understand where they came coming from. We've talked about this on the Looking for More show a lot. I've talked about it on Mondays and MMORPGs before, which is the shifting the nature of shifting goalposts in crowd-funded projects because these things are constantly shifting, and when you have a player base who are always willing to kind of let things slide, you can get into this habit of continually moving things until you're 10 years in and now you're starting to get kickback because your community is saying, hey, you know what? You've shifted things enough. You need to just put out, shit or get off the pot, as one would say. So, I get where the fans are coming from. I get why they're upset. I don't think it was the right move to call this distraction or noise because people are upset because you've taken 10 years longer than you said it was going to take. So it's an interesting thing. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. If you like the video, smash that like button. If you want more, don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell icon, join our Discord. Links are down below. And if you want to support the channel, head over to our Patreon page, The Weave and the Voids, Wandering Hermits Patreon, patreon.com/Wandering Hermits. I said all that wrong, but that's okay. Check that out. Find out what I'm working on with my brother and my wife. Pick up a subscription for as little as $3 a month. Hopefully, I'll see you there. If not, I'll see you in Discord. And if not, we'll see you here in the next episode. See you, everybody.